My name is Professor Hank Edmondson. I teach at Georgia College, which is the public liberal arts university for the University of Georgia in the United States. This is a mini course. We're going to be talking about comics and politics. And by way of introduction, I'd like to give you a brief overview of some of the things we'll be talking about. Before I do that, perhaps I could say something about my interest in this subject, which is a fairly new subject in the universities, but it's one that's gathering a great deal of interest. My primary interest, I would say, in political science is political philosophy, although from there I cover several areas. And even more, I am interested, and my research interest has been in the degree to which literature can illustrate and help us to understand, to unfold principles of political philosophy and principles of moral philosophy. So it was a bit happenstance that I began to look at this in the area of comics and graphic novels. It really came at the request of the director of our honors program. But it was a fairly natural transition, and as I have taught the course several times now and pursued this, it has become of more interest to me. So I've begun to explore comics and graphic novels, and we'll say a little bit about the distinction between the two of those, to the extent there is a distinction. I've become interested in this particular genre as one more opportunity, like literature, film, even music, to explore, to understand better, to understand more profoundly the important principles of political philosophy and moral philosophy. The series is going to begin with a few introductory capsules. We'll be looking at some questions that come up pretty quickly and pretty naturally when we're looking at this topic. The first tends to be, does this kind of study have a place in the university? And by way of answering that, we'll have to ask why it has not had a place until fairly recently. We'll also explore questions such as what's the difference between a comic and a graphic novel, again, to the extent there is a difference, and there's a fair amount of discussion about that. We will want to ask who reads comics, who reads graphic novels, and the answer to that is pretty surprising. I've certainly been surprised over the last decade or so of the people who are comic and graphic novel aficionados. They come from all walks of life, professionals, certainly not just kids anymore. It's a very serious pursuit, it's a very serious interest. We're also going to do our best to pair up certain political philosophers, certain works of political philosophy with certain graphic novels and certain comic series. So there will be several modules in which we will look specifically at a particular graphic novel, and we will see how it illustrates, how it helps us to understand a work such as Thucydides' History of the Peloponnesian Wars. In our case, especially his discussion of the nature of civil war. There will be several of those types of pursuits, and we also want to look at the relationship between graphic novels and comics in a more contemporary sense of politics. That is, the extent to which graphic novels are used as, perhaps for want of a better phrase, as political propaganda, how that has changed over the decades, the way in which subject matter in graphic novels tends to divide along the political spectrum. That is what you expect from the left side of the political spectrum, what you seem to see from the right side of the political spectrum, and even the extent to which comics and graphic novels are used as commentaries on political questions, as even a form of political protest. So that's a sample of what we'll be doing, and I think you'll enjoy the series. It's very entertaining. No one would disagree with that. But I think it's also educational. I think it's also academic, and it's also philosophical. And so I welcome you to join me as we explore that.